call the meeting to order. I want to welcome everybody to Rotary. This time I'll ask John Phillips to do the Pledge of Allegiance and Richard Anderson to do, well, I got it backwards, but anyhow, ask Richard Anderson to do the pledge and John Phillips to do the invocation.
Place flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this another day that you have made. We thank you for life. We thank you for your love. Thank you for life you give us this great country. Help us to truly be proud to be Americans. Be with us, guide us, protect us, and bless this food and nourishment of our body. We ask in Christ's name. Amen.
I'm going to turn the program over to Roger Bryant. He's going to present his information for today.
Okay, well, I've tried for 4 times now to get the foster care and adoption recruitment team for this area to come and do a presentation for y'all. And so far, I have struck out every time. Today, they're in mandatory training. So I told Bob, I said, you know, I hate for us not to have a program, so I'm going to bore these people with me. So at any rate, the first thing I want to do is, I know that after eating that meal, everybody needs a little mind exercise. So I want you to do this exercise in your mind. I want everybody to pick a number, any number. Everybody got one? I want you to double that number. I want you to add 10 to it. Divide it by 2 and subtract your original number. Has everybody done that? Everybody should have 5. Is that what you got? Everybody got 5?
I had 3.
Well, you can't count, so we can understand that, Joe. I told Bob I would come up here and talk a little bit about what's going on in my life. You know, I retired from DFACS 5.5 years ago, but I can't seem to get it out of my blood. About 2.5 years ago, they asked me if I'd serve on the local board here, and I said yes. About 6 months after that, they said, would you serve on the regional board? I said yes. Last October, I received a call from the governor's office, and last year, the General Assembly passed a law that established a state advisory board for DFACS, and the governor appoints those who serve on it. I got a call from the governor's office wanting me to serve in that capacity. So I said, okay, I'll serve in that capacity. Well, we had our first meeting in May, and we went up there to Atlanta. You don't get paid to do this. You go up there, but we are in the process right now of writing the bylaws for the board. Our duties will be to review the practices and policies of DFACS. Any high-profile cases that come up, we'll be reviewing those and making recommendations as to how it could be handled appropriately. It's a wide variety of things we're going to be doing, and I was going to read those to you, but I'm going to spare you of that. At any rate, I can't seem to get it out of my blood, and I'm looking forward to serving in that capacity. The other thing that I came up here, well, I also wanted to add a little bit about this foster care and adoptions recruitment thing. There's a big need in the state of Georgia. Right now, there's 13,000 children in foster care in the state of Georgia. That's a lot of kids. 300 of those children are up for adoption. That means that they're free for adoption, just waiting for somebody to step up to the plate and say, I'll take you and raise you as my own child. that's why I don't understand why these people aren't jumping at the chance to come and do presentations for recruitment purposes. Locally, our DFACS office right here, right now we have around 14 children in foster care. Now, to me, that's a high number. When I was the director there, we had approximately 2 children in care for most of the time that I was there. I know that foster care serves a purpose, but in my opinion, it should be the last alternative for a child to go through, because a child that's been abused or neglected has suffered enough already. When you take them away from their parents and place them with strangers, you're doing another disservice to them. Now, I realize it serves a purpose, and sometimes you have no alternative but to place a child in foster care, but it should be the very last alternative. And so I always had my staff beat the bushes for relatives. We even placed some children with friends in the past, and that's a pretty hard thing to do, because the judge is the one who makes that decision, and very seldom will they do that. But if you go through the process and you vet these people enough and you can present a good case to the judge, they will place them there. At any rate, that's just a little bit about that. I was going to tell you about the food stamp program here in Bleckley County. In 2014, they issued approximately $3 million worth of benefits, and that's a little bit less than it has been, but that's significant for the local economy here. Child care, they had approximately 70 children in child care, and the revenue generated from that was around $85,000. So there's some money coming into the county through these programs. The other thing I wanted to talk about, and this just happened, I guess in January, I started thinking about riding a motorcycle to the Keys, specifically going to Key West. And so I asked my wife if she would be on board for that, and she said yeah, she'd be on board for that. So I started planning that thing out. Well, last Monday on Memorial Day, we headed out on our motorcycle to Key West, and during the time we were planning this, I guess it was sometime around March or April, some friends of ours, Lynn and Craig Young, who many of y'all know, they also ride a motorcycle. He has a Gold Wing. And so we were talking with them, and Craig said, well, I'd love to do that. So they came on board to go with us. So last Monday morning, Memorial Day, we headed out towards Key West. We rode about 300 miles, stopped in a place called Milton, Florida. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that. We tried to travel back roads. We didn't want to travel interstate. Well, it came to be lunchtime, and we're on this road, which there wasn't a whole lot of anything. We come on this gas station / restaurant. So we stopped there to stretch our legs, but the women went inside there, and they came back out, and they said, we think we want to eat here. I said, okay. You know, it didn't look like any place you'd want to eat. But we went in there, and so on going in the restaurant, I said, well, has anybody talked to these locals? And there were a lot of local people there. They said, yeah, man. They said the food's great. And they said the best thing they have here is a grouper sandwich. Well, I love grouper. And so I said, well, I know what I'm getting, you know. So we go in there, and fried grouper sandwich for $7. Delicious, you know. All the food that we had there was really good. Well, we come back out, we get on the motorcycles and head on out. We traveled about 300 miles on the motorcycles and had stopped at Wendy's, somewhere on 27 in one of those little small towns. The towns just run together there, but we stopped at Wendy's, and we're getting off the motorcycles, and this guy from Wendy's that works there comes out, and he goes, y'all must be here for the free Frosties. We didn't even know they were, we stopped there to get Frosties, but we didn't know they were free. I said, what do you mean? He says, well, it's Memorial Day. I said, okay. He says, on Memorial Day, Wendy's gives away free Frosties. We didn't know that, so we went inside and we got our free Frosties and we ate those and we headed back out. Well, while we were there, we had traveled about 300 miles, and I said, you know, we need to be looking for a hotel to spend the night in. And Vonda, my wife, says, well, I think we ought to ride a little bit further. She said, about 100 miles at least. I said, okay, we can do that. We headed out, and we got about 40 miles, and we got in one of the worst rainstorms I think I have experienced. I didn't carry a rain suit. Craig didn't carry a rain suit. We had rain suit for the women. Well, it started raining. We pulled over. They put on their rain suits, and me and Craig, we manned up and just kept on going. I told Craig, I said, we're going to have to run out of this rain somewhere. It can't be raining from here to where we're going. So we headed on out. Well, I guess that was about 40 miles. About 25 miles down the road, it's still raining. It got heavier. We're stopped at a red light, and this young guy in this BMW comes by and rolls down his window and says, y'all need to park those things. It's dangerous out here. My wife said, if I was a bird shooter, I would have shot him a bird. I said, well, I'm glad you didn't, baby. But at any rate, we kept on going. We ran out of the rain. And we said, okay, we're going to start looking for a motel. I said, well, Sebring, Florida's right up here, and that's where we can find something. We got about 10 miles from Sebring, and it started raining again. I had just about dried out. On a motorcycle, you can get wet, but it's so hot, and the wind is hitting you so hard that you dry out pretty fast. Well, I had just about dried out when we hit that second rainstorm, so when we got to the hotel, we were pretty much soaked again. We got up the next morning, we headed out. On 27, going through Florida, after you go through these little towns, about the last town you come through is Clewiston. And after that, it's pretty desolate. Well, we're going through this desolate road. And I look in my rearview mirror and I don't see Craig and Lynn anymore. And so I told Vonda, I said, something's happened to them. We've got to turn around. So we turn around and we go back, and sure enough, they're pulled over to the side of the road. And there's a business where they're at. So we pull up to them and say, what's wrong? Craig says he's got a flat tire. His back tire was flat. And he says, but this guy's going to help me. And I looked over there, and it was a truck and trailer repair place. So this guy, and he was pretty greasy looking, he asked Craig, he said, you think you can push your motorcycle down here where we can look at it? And Craig says, well, I think so. Well, Craig is turned around and looked at his motorcycle. This guy runs over there, y'all, and pulls out this air hose. I guarantee you it was longer than this building. He pulls that air hose out there to the motorcycle, gets down and lays down on the ground and is looking at that flat tire, and he says, man, it's your valve stem. And Craig says, okay. He says, that'll be easy to fix. 15 minutes later, we're riding down the road. The guy says, pull it up on the stand, and on a go wing, you can actually pull the motorcycle up on a stand that goes down like this, and the back tire's off the ground. Well, the back tire was off the ground, and the guy came out there with some tire tubes and just pushed the tire over, pulled the valve stem out, and pushed another one in and pulled it through, and then pumped the tire up. Craig says, how much I owe you? The guy says, $2. Craig gave him a $20 bill and said, thank you. I told Craig, I said, that could only be God. There was no other place on that road. If that had happened, he probably would have looked at $300 to $500 to get somebody to come tow the motorcycle and take it someplace and get it fixed. Well, we all were very much blessed by that. We were on the road again. So we head out. We're trying to make it down to Key West this day. We get on the other side of Miami on, I think we were still on 27 at that point. And we started seeing helicopters flying around, and then all of a sudden we see all these news trucks with the things up and people standing beside the road, reporters and all, and then we see all this law enforcement gathered over here by the canal. So we're wondering what's going on. Well, you know, when you got a smartphone, you can pretty much figure out what's going on. We stopped a little ways down the road there, and Lynn says, 2 fishermen found a gator eating a human being, a human body back there. And they have pulled it out and they're taking it, but they can't determine if it's a man or a woman or what. And so a little excitement there, you know, we're going, man, you know. But at any rate, we make it to this other road called 997. We get on 997 and it's total construction the whole way. 45 miles an hour from there on down to the mouth of the Keys, which is US 1. Well, to make matters worse, it started raining while we were on that road. So here we go getting soaked again. We did pull over. I didn't know that there were casinos in Florida. Maybe some of y'all do, but on the reservations there, and there's not only Seminole Indians down there, there's also some other tribes that I had never heard of. But they have casinos, so we pull in at one of the casinos to let the women once again put on their rain gear while me and Craig get soaked. Well, we made it on down to US 1 and headed into the Keys at that point. I don't know if you've ever been to the Keys, but the water is emerald green. It is just beautiful. It is so clear you can actually see the bottom from the roadway when you're riding down the road. Well, we get down to Key West, and we had already made our reservations there, so we got to the hotel, which was located 0.2 miles from the center of downtown. So we were right in the middle of the old district there, and looking at all the architecture and the old houses down there. One of the fascinating things about Key West is these chickens. I don't know how many of you have been there, but there's chickens running all over the place. There's roosters crowing the whole time, and there's hens with biddies just running all over the place, and we wondered how they survived, but we didn't see any that had been run over, so evidently they're pretty good at dodging cars. Some adults aren't so fortunate. We were walking towards the downtown, and this guy turns into a little shopping area there and hits this woman on a bicycle right in front of us. Knocks her off the bicycle. We run over there and made sure she was all right, and she gets up and she's going, yeah, I'm okay, but she didn't really seem okay, but she said she was okay, and we stayed there with her for about 15 minutes, and her front tire was kind of bent up some. We tried to straighten it out, and at any rate, she walked off pushing her bicycle. That must be a bad place, because the next day we were coming back on the motorcycles and we saw another accident at the same place that involved law enforcement. While we were down there, we ate some good food. We had an authentic Cuban the first night, and that was different. You don't go to Key West to go to the beach. We found that out. Of course, we only went to one beach, and I understand that there's 3 down there. The one that we did go to, we met this guy who looked like he was homeless. We got off the motorcycles, and he came over there immediately and started talking about our motorcycles. And this guy told us he was from Conyers, Georgia. Said he'd been down there 20 years. He said hadn't changed a bit in 20 years. And then in the next breath, he says, I'm trying to get back to Georgia, though. This place is going to the dogs. And he said, okay, you know, and we're trying to get away from this guy. And there's this place where you go over here at the beach where you can rent an umbrella and 2 chairs for $20. Well, with our women, we had to do that because we couldn't carry anything on the motorcycle for them. So I go over there to get the umbrella and 2 chairs. Well, I asked the girl there, I said, you take credit cards? She said, no, cash only. Well, this guy, he follows me over there, so I'm looking in my wallet, and the only thing I have is a $100 bill. So I told the girl, I said, well, this is all I have. And she goes, that's all you got? I said, that's all I've got. The guy says to her, do you want me to run and get you some change? And I'm thinking, I wouldn't give this guy $100 to go get change for nothing. She looks at him, she goes, no, I think I can handle it. And she reaches under there and gets her little bag of money out. But at any rate, that was interesting. Another interesting thing about this guy was, when we were getting ready to leave, he followed us over to the motorcycle and he says to me, he says, you wouldn't let me take a spin on it, would you? I looked at him and I said, not today. We left Key West there, and I don't know how many of you have been down there, but there's a place in Alamorada Key that's called Robbie's, and it's a restaurant. But it's also a little dock there. And you can go out there on their dock and you can buy a bucket of fish for $3. And you can go out there on their dock and you can feed the tarpon. There must be hundreds of those tarpon that are hanging around those docks, and some of them are like 6 to 8 feet long. I mean, they're massive. If you've ever seen a tarpon come out of the water and open its mouth, their heads look like this, but when they open their mouth, it's like this. And those things are huge, but that was a pretty neat place to go. Craig and them had never seen anything like that. Well, we went on up to US 1, and we were going to go into Miami. I used to live in Miami, and I was going to take them by and show them where we used to live and some other things. Well, before we got to Homestead, it started raining again, and I'm talking about raining really hard. And it was about 4:15. Well, if you've ever been through Miami traffic, you don't want to be near Miami from like 4:30 to 5 o'clock, or even 4:30 to 6 o'clock is bad. So we pull into a gas station there, and we discussed it, and I said, I tell you what, my recommendation would be that we get on the turnpike and try to get away from Miami as fast as we can, and then we'll try to get off of the turnpike and go over to A1A. So that's what we did. We got on the turnpike and we went up and actually hit 95 off the turnpike, and from 95 went up to Vero Beach. It went over and hit A1A, and we found us a place. We went to Cocoa Beach and ate lunch. It's a beautiful drive up A1A there on a motorcycle. When we left Cocoa Beach after lunch, Craig, he has not led the whole time on his motorcycle, and when I say lead, that means one motorcycle is in the front. Well, we're on A1A, and we had agreed that we're going to stay with A1A and go up the coast. Well, what happens is after Cocoa Beach, A1A kind of fades out because of Cape Canaveral and all that. Well, Craig's on this road, and we go past. I see a sign that says US 1 to the right. Craig keeps going. Next thing I see is I-95 North. Craig keeps on going. The next sign I see says Orlando, 52 miles. I told Vonda, I said, we're going away from the coast. We're going towards Orlando. She pulls it up on her phone. She says, the next exit's 9 miles away. So I pull up to Craig and I go, and Craig goes, because he don't know either. So anyway, we get off at the next exit, and I said, Craig says, I thought we were still on A1A. I said, no, A1A kind of hooks into US 1 or hooks off of US 1 primarily. So anyway, I said, all we have to do is find a road that heads east, and we'll be all right. So we got on Florida 50 and went, I don't know how many miles. It seemed like we rode for about 35 or 40 minutes before we got to I-95. We get to I-95 and we're getting gas, and I mean, by this time, the sun is just brutal out. And we're getting gas, and there's a guy across from me, and he says, I just rode my motorcycle out to California. I said, really? He said, yeah. I said, how long did it take you? He said, 17 days. He says, we just flew back last week. I said, well, who went with you? He said, my daughter. But so I got to talking to this guy, and I said, listen, we were having a debate among us as to whether this road connected to US 1 that we were on. It had to cross it at some point. And I said, if we keep going on this road, are we going to hit US 1? He said, yes. I said, but we're not going to hit A1A. He said, no. He said, you won't hit A1A for about another 50 miles up the road. So I got to talking to him about rides. He says, I tell you, the prettiest ride, what you want to do is get off at Ormond Beach and then take that ride up through there. So that's what we did. We discussed it, and we decided that what we would do is go to Ormond Beach. It was about 2 o'clock. We decided we'd go to Ormond Beach and get us a hotel room and go to the beach that afternoon, and then get up and head out on that ride through A1A. And that's a beautiful ride through there. There's not very many towns. It's mostly just houses. You see a house every now and then, but it's mostly just the coastline. You can see it really good from a motorcycle or a car, so I highly recommend that ride. But at any rate, we made it back in about 4 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. We had a good trip. I was going to tell you our expenses. I spent $131 on gas. We went 1,600 miles. I spent $200 on food for me and my wife, and probably about half of that was in tips to people. And for our lodging, we spent $465 for 5 nights. But that's it.